משנכנס אב ממעטים בשמחה. I want to discuss a few of the practices and a few of the minhagim which we have during this period of time coming up to Tisha B'Av. As the days get closer to that tragic day of Tisha B'Av, the amount of mourning increases, or the signs of avelut, of mourning, will increase until we get to Tisha B'Av. And please God, this year maybe we shouldn't get to Tisha B'Av, and Hashem should turn it into a Yom Tov, and Bezrat Hashem with the coming of the Mashiach. Now, we all know the practice and the minhag of not listening to music during this period of time. I just want to clarify this matter in order to people should understand whether the restriction comes from. So the Holy Magen Avraham writes that rikudim and mecholot, that means dancing and rejoicing with music, should be restricted from the 17th of Tammuz up to Tisha B'Av. The question comes today, listening to music. People casually listen to music. They don't dance and move around when they're listening, but they want to know, could we listen to music which is played with instruments, even though it's not live? Is there any restriction from the 17th of Tammuz? So I would like to read you out the Holy Rambam. The Rambam in Ilchot Ta'aniyot writes, and I'm going to read his words because it's important for people to understand where the restriction of listening to music in this period of time comes from. The Rambam writes that and this is based on the Talmud in Masechet Sotah, and that after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the Jewish people restricted themselves from certain practices in order to remember the destruction. One of them is, the Shulchan Aruch brings the Lashon of the Rambam. The Rambam writes, V'chen gazru, the rabbis made a decree. Now, this is no simple word. When you use the word gezerah, it means this is no less important than breaking a glass under the chuppah and other practices which we do, zecher lachurban. Gazru, they actually decreed, shelo lenagen biklei shir, not to play musical instruments, v'chol minei zemer, v'chol mashmi'ei kol shel shir, and any instrument which gives the sound of music. Asur lismach bahem, one should not rejoice with them. That means this is the Rambam speaking all year round, not during the 3 weeks and not after Rosh Chodesh Av. This is the Rambam saying that this decree applies all year round. The people shouldn't sit and listen to musical instruments and rejoice and get happiness from them. Now, it's very hard to maintain such a practice nowadays, either because listening to music out of recording is something more casual than it would be in the olden days to use instruments. However, the Rambam does clearly write in his word, Kol mashmi'ei. It's interesting why he would go to such details. You can't use instruments, and then he goes, anything which gives the sound of music. Maybe you can say that Rambam predicted instruments which will give you the whole orchestra, the whole band, and the one which we call today tape recordings or music which you hear from different instruments, which gives you a full comprehensive music to listen to. So the Rambam says this would be a restriction which applies all year round. Unfortunately, we have today fallen into what we call a depressed generation. That in order to keep a standard of being not depressed, so we need to listen to this music. We're not actually having any extra simcha. We just want to have a norm, what we call a normal life. So we listen to music whilst we are walking around, whilst we're doing our work. So it wouldn't be considered necessarily what the Rambam says, lismoach bahem. It's just to keep and maintain a normal. However, because of these words of the Rambam, and because this is a decree which has been prescribed by our Chachamim years ago, and is brought in the Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch quotes those languages. So therefore, at least on the days which our rabbis subscribed and gave us, the days that there should be extra mourning, for instance, from the 17th of Tammuz to Tisha B'Av, or during the Omer and the Sfirah, these are times where we do mark a certain period of Avelut, whether it's between 17th of Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, Kol Rodefeh Hisigua Ben HaMetzarim. This is very tragic days that we know that the siege that broke the actual walls of Yerushalayim, and you can imagine the situation that Am Yisrael were in up to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So therefore we increase. So at least in these days, let us try and maintain what the Rambam requires us actually to keep all year round. We can't do it all year round. It's hard for us. It actually, we'll fall into depression. So therefore, yes, we're entitled to listen to music nowadays. It's not like music is, you're not going to any concerts. We listen to music in our iPods, in our, whatever it is, in those machines. But at least during these 3 weeks, where the rabbis clearly tell us this is periods of time where tragic events took place, let us try and maintain what the halachic requirement of the Rambam has all year round. And that's why the custom became, and this has been endorsed by major halachic authorities, contemporary halachic authorities, not to listen to music in no form during the 3 weeks. People ask about a cappella. Now, really, it's shira bepeh. You're not actually using an instrument, but the effect which it makes is very close to musical instruments. In fact, sometimes they'll tell you it's actually really close to that. So we can't restrict that as well. So we will, during the 3 weeks up to Rosh Chodesh, a person can listen to a cappella. When it comes from Rosh Chodesh onwards, reduce it. Go less on it. Don't listen, unless it's just vocal and someone singing Shira Bepeh. That much we're entitled to be lenient up to Tisha B'Av. But more than that, people should try and avoid from Rosh Chodesh. I'm not saying it's asur according to din and halacha, because we have no clear-cut proof that if someone makes sounds with his mouth, it will also be a fall into the restriction of mashmiei klei zemer, of what the Rambam writes. However, it's better to refrain from things which are close to that from Rosh Chodesh Av. Only vocally, you can listen to Chazanut, you can listen to people singing just vocally and singing. Even though I want to tell you, there are some halachic authorities which say that you should reduce your singing even in your mouth. And some even say even on Shabbat to reduce it, but we don't maintain that practice, and we're allowed to sing with our mouths.